Welcome to my channel. I'm Gary Wariawan and today is another episode of quick chat video in photography, and today I want to discuss the topic on how to choose the perfect focal length for your main prime lens for both photography and video. The reason why I want to talk about today's video is because I think it is very important, especially for you guys who want to use a prime lens as your main lens for both photography and video. And also this topic is very important first step to learn, especially if you want to understand more about the art of pre-visualization, which is the art of being able to see whether a certain focal length is tight enough or wide enough for a certain scenery. So now let me share some of my experience regarding choosing my perfect focal length for my prime lens. So the first part of my journey of finding the perfect focal length, I would call this stage of my life the classic stage. You know what I'm talking about? When you first wanna try a prime lens, people will usually suggest either 35mm equivalent focal length or 50mm focal length. So I proceeded and get both of those lenses, especially for my micro four thirds camera. So I got both the Olympus 17mm f1.8 and the Olympus 25mm f1.8, and I used them for quite a while, for a few months, for a few years, and I decided that both of them are either too tight or too wide. So I really want something in between, and I ended up with a 40mm equivalent with this lens right here. This is the Panasonic Lumix 20mm f1.7, and for a few years I was quite happy with this lens. I was quite happy with this focal length. I think this is not too tight and not too wide, and just perfect for getting that classic shots, especially for street photography and general out and about photography. So the next part of the journey I would like to call this phase of my life going back to the root. Anyway, I'm quite happy with the 20mm lens at that stage of my life. I use this lens a lot for photography and I'm really liking the result of this particular focal length. But I kept thinking, what about if I go back to something that I'm really familiar with? And that means going back to my roots. So when I grew up, in terms of photography, I didn't grow up shooting film cameras like many of you. I grew up shooting on a phone's camera. So yeah, I'm quite familiar with the focal length of the phone camera, which is equivalent to about 28mm or 30mm, and that's when I began my search for the focal length that closely represents the focal length on the smartphone's camera, and that leads me to two different lenses. First is the Panasonic Leica 15mm f1.7 right here, and then the second lens that I just recently got is the Panasonic Lumix 14mm f2.5. Both are very similar to the focal length of the main camera of any smartphone, and I think that is my route. And yeah, immediately after I got both of these lenses, especially with the 15mm, yeah, I started to feel right away that I can pre-visualize better. I'm already familiar with the focal lengths, and you know, I kind of already know the strengths and weakness of this lens, and that makes the 15mm and also the 14mm both my main prime focal lengths when I just want to go out and about for my general shooting kind of, you know, focal lengths. I'm not abandoning the 20mm. I'm just kind of differentiating a little bit with the 14 and the 15. That's gonna be my main prime focal length. But with the 20mm, that's for something a little bit more specialized like street photography or environmental portrait photography. What I really want to say from this part of my journey finding the perfect focal length is that when you first started to learn about photography, there might be a lens or two that you use a lot. Maybe those lenses are going to be your root lens. That is because when I first got my Panasonic Leica 15mm f1.7, immediately I feel like at home. Bam! Everything is just so easy. I'm already familiar with this lens. I can shoot a whole lot of things. I already know the strengths and weakness of this lens. And that is because this focal length is my root focal length. Next part of my journey of trying to find the perfect focal length for my prime lens is what I call the wild card phase. So that basically means just, grabbing something that I'm not even familiar with and just try to use it as my main prime lens. So for a period of time, this was my wild card kind of prime lens. This is the Laowa 7.5mm f2, equivalent to about 15mm in full frame. And yeah, I treat this lens for a while as my main lens and just use this lens as frequent as I can to get the most out of the 15mm equivalent focal length. And the result is I got better at my wide angle photography, and I also learned a lot about landscape photography with the Laowa lens. Some of my keeper shots are taken using this lens. And then nowadays I'm really busy with this lens right here. This is the Olympus 75mm f1.8. I used this lens a lot back in the days, but only for event photography, documentary photography, not really for my main lens. And nowadays on my vlogs I use this lens as sort of my main lens almost. I still use other lenses, but I use this one really frequently. And as a result, I now got really familiarized with 75mm focal length in micro four thirds. I start to learn more about the strength and weakness of this lens. And I really enjoyed that process of learning. And yeah, maybe you can try the same method as well. Just throw something wild into your camera bag and use it as your main lens, and maybe you'll start to have a better appreciation about that particular focal length, and you'll be able to learn about those focal lengths. Worst thing that can happen, maybe you just won't end up loving that particular focal length, but at least you already tried. So yeah, in conclusion, there are many methods that you can use to find that perfect focal length for your prime lens. You can try the classic way, trying both the 35mm and 50mm, see which one you like better, or just find something that's close enough to either the 35 or the 50mm, like on my case with my 20mm f1.7. And the second method is going back to your root when you first started photography. What is the lens that you use the most? Maybe try that focal length rather than just experimenting with, focal lengths that you don't really understand. Maybe by going back to the root, you'll be able to be familiarized with that focal length again and start shooting right away without drama, without having to learn about something new. That's also another way. And the last method is throwing a wild lens into your camera bag, like the ultra telephoto focal length or ultra wide angle lens, and use it as your main lens for a few months and see if you like that focal length, and maybe you'll be able to learn something new from that particular focal length. So that is all that I want to share today. I hope that today's video has been informative, helps you to understand more about how to find that perfect focal length, and I hope you can apply it on your photography as well. Good luck with your search of your perfect focal length. I hope that you find the best focal length for your prime lens, and happy shooting. If you have any question, please comment down below. I will try to answer them. Also, don't forget to support my channel by liking this video, sharing this video, and subscribing to my channel down below. If you want to support my work even further, consider using the affiliate links in the description or use the super thanks button below. Thank you and see you on the next video. Goodbye.